Now, we've all heard a lot about what sustainability stands for and how we can actually make our contributions in that direction. But let's just take a step back and talk about how what we see on paper, the pledges that we see on paper, and the implementation on the ground. There is, let's face it, a gap on that front. And how can we all come together? How can we adopt a multi-pronged approach to actually fight that gap, to fight against climate change, and walk towards a cleaner, greener future? That brings me to our first session of the day. Through the course of the evening, of course, as Madhu pointed out, we will be delving deeper into the various aspects that the word sustainability brings along with it as well. Our first discussion for the evening, ladies and gentlemen, Sustainable Development Goals and their implementation, featuring Vivek Kumar Dewangan, Chairman and Managing Director, REC Limited, Dr. Vaibhav Chaturvedi, Fellow Council on Energy, Environment and Water. This session will be moderated by Vikram, Chandra, Senior Journalist and Presenter, India Story WION.
Thank you both so much for being here. And it's a pleasure to be here to discuss something that is obviously becoming of increasingly critical importance. Sustainability is something that once used to be something to talk about. Yes, we should aspire to it. But maybe people used to say somebody in the future will have to worry about it. There will be a day will come where we will have to really worry about climate action. But now, every single day when you're reading the newspaper, when you put on your TV channels, you can see the impact that is happening. Extreme weather, which we're all experiencing, is a result of climate change. The water crisis that we are seeing is an aspect of what is being discussed out here. So these are issues that we do have to turn our attention to. When we are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, as we will be right now, many of them are broader questions like poverty and dealing with issues like that, gender disparity. But among the Sustainable Development Goals that are particularly important, which I think the two of you might be able to shed some light on, is the question of energy, and is the question of, can we manage our energy requirements in a more sustainable manner? So thank you both so much for joining us. Mr. Dewangan, if I could just start with you. You are the Chairman and Managing Director of REC Limited. And you've done a lot of work on how actually India can manage energy transition. And this is an important question, because if a country like India can make a transition from polluting sources of energy to more renewable energy, it sets the stage for the rest of the world to do it.
Let me share with you that REC is known for its rural electrification work, particularly with regard to universal access of electricity. But now we have changed our business strategy. Now REC would be known for its renewable energy centric efforts. As you are aware that energy transition efforts are going on, Honorable Prime Minister during Glasgow COP26 had announced that India aspires to install 500 gigawatt capacity, about 186 gigawatt capacity installed from non-fossil fuel sources in India. In the next 7 years, about 314 gigawatt capacity would be installed from non-fossil fuel sources. Since renewable energy is intermittent in nature, it will also require storage solution, be it pump storage hydro project or battery energy storage or hydrogen fuel cell project. And there are other initiatives, new technology areas like green hydrogen, green ammonia projects are coming up, and there is big push towards electric mobility. So a technical arm of Ministry of Power, that is Central Electricity Authority, has made a projection that about 15 lakh to 20 lakh crore investment would be required to achieve this ambitious target of 500 gigawatt of installed electricity capacity by the year 2030. We in REC have made our business strategy to target about 20% of this business share. Right now, the renewable energy portfolio of REC is about 30,000 crore, We want to increase it by 10 folds in next 7 years. The asset under management for renewable energy portfolio will increase from 30,000 crore to 3 lakh crore in next 7 years. For that, we have made comprehensive strategy. We are targeting not only plain vanilla solar and wind solution, but we are also targeting solar hybrid with wind, solar hybrid with storage, wind hybrid with storage. We are also targeting pump storage hydro projects. We're also targeting battery energy storage. And recently, we had organized Green Finance Summit at Goa in the third week of July on the sideline of G20 Energy Transition Working Group. There we had interacted with power developers, renewable energy developers, technology providers, solar manufacturing providers, electric mobility, OEMs also. We were overwhelmed by the response that we received. We were able to sign MOUs worth 2,86,000 crore after identifying projects from each of these stakeholders. And I'm happy to share with you that after signing this MOU, we have already sanctioned 25,000 crore worth project in last 2 months, in the month of August and September. And in the remaining 6 months of this current financial year, from October to March 2024, we intend to sanction another 1 lakh crore project for renewable energy segment. That's how we are going to give a big push to energy transition related initiative of India.
I'm going to discuss some of those plans with you in more detail, but Dr. Vaibhav Chaturvedi, if I could turn to you, you're fellow at the Council of Energy, Environment and Water. If you look at the entire question around how do we try and save the planet, for a long period of time, it was essentially a tussle between the developed countries, which were actually responsible for most of the problem, and the emerging economies and countries like India and others, which were saying, it's your problem, you've done something, you've really polluted the environment, you need to fix it. There now seems to be a slight change in attitude, as we are hearing out here, where countries like India are saying, even though we weren't historically responsible for what has happened, we will show you the path of how it can be cleaned up. And it sounds as if India is going to be able to meet its Paris target. Do you think that's possible and feasible? And is this a new thought process that is happening?
Yes, indeed. First of all, very good evening, and thank you for inviting me here, and congratulations to WION for this wonderful initiative. I look forward to being a part of it. Coming to this question, I think there are many colleagues from very diverse backgrounds. So I just want to say something very simple. 80% of the climate problem is due to fossil fuels, which means the cars that we are using. So the petrol that we're using in the car, that leads to emissions. The electricity that we are using, if it is produced by coal, that leads to emissions. So a lot of the things that we do essentially based on economic growth, they're all leading to certain emission negative impacts on the environment. That is the basic problem that we're talking about. And the biggest challenge is that we want to ensure that in the transition process, our economy is not hit. That is extremely important, right? So India, clearly in the last 10 years, it has done, I think, wonderfully. So as an independent research organization, it's very, very clear to us that India is increasingly taking a leadership position in the global climate discourse. It is setting the narrative, but at the same time, it is doing many things on the ground. If you follow the policy actions the government of India is taking, many states are taking, many relevant ministries are taking, it's very, very clear if you look at solar, if you look at electric mobility, if you look at the industrial sector, whichever sector you choose, the interventions are very, very clear. Industries are much more well positioned for this transition as they were like 10 years back. Clearly, there is a sea of change happening. As Mr. Dewangan is also saying, there is a sea of change in the attitude. Also, the whole point about being a climate leader, it's clearly pervading down to many different aspects of the economy. And yes, I'll completely agree with what Mr. Dewangan is saying. It is very, very visible to all of us. Yeah.
May I supplement? I would like to highlight the fact that India is one of the few G20 countries which has been able to meet its commitment made in COP21 at Paris in 2015. We had committed that we'll bring down our emission intensity of GDP by about 33 to 35% as compared to 2005 level by the year 2030. We have already achieved this target, and now we have enhanced our ambition to bring down emission intensity of GDP by about 45% by the year 2030.
Right. If I can just look at the broader issue, though, you're mentioning COP, another COP is around the corner. Increasingly, reports are coming saying, well, we are probably going to blow past 1.5. Who knows where it is going to end? And even if India is doing, there are a lot of other countries that are not yet coming anywhere close to meeting Paris. How bad do you think the situation actually is going to be?
Well, yeah, it is going to be worse than where we are sitting today. That is very, very clear. So currently we are sitting at an increase of 1.15 degrees C. So whenever I say increase, it is relative to temperature levels during pre-industrial revolution time. So I'm talking about compared to 1850, where the world is already warmer on an average by 1.15 degrees C. And a lot of things that we are seeing around. And it's very interesting, I think the point you also made, Vikram. So it's 20 years back, this discussion, it was like scientists telling everybody that climate change is happening. People are telling us, well, I mean, I'm not so sure about it, you know. It's completely reversed now. Now people are telling scientists. So I am from the scientific community. I don't need to convince people at all now in this generation. So, which simply means climate impacts are increasing. In the last 20 years, clearly they have increased. And I don't want to say I'm scaremongering, but well, the science says very clearly that the path at which we are on.
You don't need to scaremonger, because when you open the newspapers, you're talking floods in one place, drought in the other, extreme heat waves, forest fires, wildfires happening everywhere. People can now see it around them.
Yes, it's very, very visible to all of us. So to your question, well, yes, next 10 years are definitely going to be worse because we are staring at 1.5 degrees C, crossing that. That is very, very clear. But compared to what could have been, when the emission path at which we were in, let's say, early 2020 years back, we were talking about, you know, like 3.5, 4 degrees rise. Now, clearly, because of a lot of actions by many governments and many different communities, we are thankfully not on that path. Clearly, we are on a lower path. That lower path is also pretty scary. You know, so we are not at 4.5, but we are definitely at 2.5. Our target is 1.5. So of course, it is better than what could have been. So clearly, actions have happened. It is not as good as what we wanted to, you know, happen.
So if it has to be bent further, so I want to return to the issue of what you are doing and others in India are doing, because that could show a path. Now, the changes that you said, and going from 30,000, 10x in a few years, in 7 years, is actually a remarkable achievement to pull off. Is it happening because of policy? Is it happening because of the older technologies, relatively older, like solar and wind and others, and they have become more affordable now because of new technology? Or will it be because of things which are completely new, like green hydrogen?
Yeah, it is mainly due to the policy initiative initiated by Government of India, particularly Ministry of Power and Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. They have provided an enabling ecosystem where the renewable energy developers can sustain, the ease of doing business that India has been advocating is really attracting the investor in India. And moreover, the entire ecosystem is improving. A lot of policy reforms have taken place in the last 3-4 years, which is really given a big push. And recently this green hydrogen mission has also been set up, and India is one of the few countries leading this initiative. A lot of work has already gone, and recently an amendment has been carried out in the Energy Conservation Act, wherein government can mandate consumption of the renewable energy sources. Recently a draft notification has already been circulated by Ministry of Power, wherein this renewable generation obligation has also been mandated. I hope that all these policy initiatives will give a big thrust and will be able to achieve the energy transition related targets which we have envisaged.
Yeah, so let me come on that point. I think the big point I want to make is markets are extremely powerful. Markets are extremely, extremely powerful. But whether markets deliver perverse outcomes or whether they deliver outcomes that we want as a society is for the policy framework to decide. Policy frameworks shape the direction of markets. So it is not either or. Policy has an extremely important role to play, but ultimately what will deliver on the ground is going to be markets.
What happened at G20, the new talk about climate financing, that potentially sets up market dynamic structures
Yes.
in favor of good policies. Do you think enough was done at G20 a month
Well, a
ago?
lot needs to be done. Clearly enough has not been done. A lot needs to be done on finance. Finance is the biggest impediment right now. See, as I was saying, the direction of climate debate has changed very decisively. It has very clearly changed. So now the debate is not at all whether we want to stop at 1.1. No debate at all. We do want to limit at 1.5. Now the discussion is happening on the nuts and bolts of it. Finance is one of the most important nuts and bolts of it. So that is where the impediment right now is. We are working on many different levers in the system to change this particular scenario. So we recognize it, but yes, that is the biggest impediment. It is not at all solved as of now.
All right. Can I just ask you, if you had to look at the challenges ahead in that ambitious roadmap that you're talking, both here in India, final thoughts from you on what you think the challenges could be?
The main challenge that I foresee is about the cost of financing this climate change related initiative. The climate finance is available, the volume is available, but the cost is quite high. Perhaps a concerted efforts need to bring down the cost of financing for green projects. That is the major challenge.
Okay, cost of financing. Before I allow you to go, I mean, there are other SDGs in addition to just sorting out climate. Which are the other ones where you think some progress is being made? I know you've done a lot of research on water also. Is that the other big area of concern? In some SDGs like poverty, there has obviously been progress. A lot of people have been brought out of poverty. Which are the other areas that you think are really challenging?
I think progress has happened across all the SDGs. It's kind of very, very clear. The question is always that if the target is a 2020 target or 2030 target, has the progress happened as per the pace at which we want it to happen? Now, that is very different for different SDGs. That's very, very clear. Of course, progress has happened. That's also very clear. I deal with climate and energy, especially those three. But let me also say there are SDGs which are related to sustainable consumption. That's a very important part of the climate debate. So climate is a different SDG altogether. But even other SDGs have a very important impact on climate. There is a SDG that is related to sustainable cities. Right? So how we build our cities is going to ensure how we consume our energy. In US, the way people drive, for example, it's a very different ecosystem as compared to, let's say, European cities. How our cities grow and what are the options available for people to travel. Many, many such very small things collectively are going to determine how we progress towards the climate SDGs. So many SDGs are actually interrelated. In fact, poverty is the most important thing. Climate, most vulnerable communities are going to be impacted by climate in a much more negative way. So there are many, many interrelationships across the SDGs.
All right, let me sneak in one last question on you on other SDGs. And I'm sure as you're looking at the renewable future, there are other side benefits to that. We're having this in Delhi. We all got that sense of dread. It's halfway through October, so any minute now, we'll have to start holding our breath and hold our breath for another 4 months till we can breathe again because of the pollution.
A lot of concerted efforts have gone to improve this, particularly this environment of NCR region. Government has already formed a national commission to look into this aspect. And I have seen that the neighboring states like Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh have already stepped up their efforts to reduce the pollution in the coming winter. I hope that if all the stakeholders take concerted effort, we'll be able to control pollution in NCR region.
All right. Thank you both so much for joining us, and let's hope those ambitious targets that you set out can actually be achieved. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.